much too complex, much too complex, too complex, too complex, too complex.
Good afternoon. My name is James K. Holder II. Some of you may know me as Sir James II. I'd like to welcome you back to Not on My Watch. As always, I'd like to ask you to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I want you to retweet this and repeat this. If you are watching, it is Thursday, April 19th, 2018, and I would like to first start this cast by saying rest in peace to former First Lady Barbara Bush. The next person I would like to recognize is Deontay Yarborough. Now, Deontay Yarborough is a young black man, father of two, who was gunned down by the police in California, in a smaller city about 2 hours outside of Los Angeles. This happened in the parking lot of a Walmart. He was accused, or there was a call about a vehicle that may have been stolen. The vehicle he was in was not reported stolen, and yet the police arrived on the scene. They riddled the car with bullets, at least 30 fires. They have not confirmed the number of bullets they fired into the car. It was a car full of people. Deontay was killed, and a young woman in the car was injured. Ironically, after shooting this young lady, they cuffed her and had her in in custody until they decided to call medical attention for her. And it's really just another sort of occurrence in what is becoming so frequent with these cases of police brutality and over-policing of black communities and black people by the police. Now, it's really sad that this story, which I believe this happened either yesterday or the day before, hasn't even gotten any media attention because everyone's still talking about what happened at the Philadelphia Starbucks. Now, more details are arising from the situation with Starbucks. I did a video sort of poking fun at like racism or the situation called Whoop Ass Whipped Cream, and it's an episode of The Counter, my cooking show, on the same YouTube channel. So please check that out. But I basically kind of just talk about how you don't have to go to Starbucks to get coffee. And I don't think that coffee is necessarily what Starbucks sells. What Starbucks really has pitched themselves to be is a safe space for everyone to meet for public interactions. If you want to meet to discuss a business deal or even a pre-date, or, you know, I've met with people on at Starbucks to buy photo equipment, you know, like used photo equipment from a seller on Craigslist or something like that. People use Starbucks as their home office away from home. And so it's really frustrating that, you know, I don't really go to Starbucks very often. I've had my own negative interactions with Starbucks that have led me to believe that they're not the ideal place to go. However, anytime I'm having an interaction with someone that I don't know very well, it's almost invariable that they're going to suggest that we meet at Starbucks. And so it's sad because so many Americans and really so many people around the world get to use Starbucks in this very free and open space. They get to use it as their living room. They get to use it as their home office away from home. They get to really take full advantage of the service and the brand that this company offers. So we really have to take Starbucks into account as a brand and what they're promoting as what their product is. It really isn't about the coffee. I think most people know that Starbucks coffee is not the best coffee by any stretch. So let's talk about what this is and why is it that there's an exclusivity to this service that's being provided. Why is it that black customers are treated differently? Why aren't we welcome to share that same forum and use a Starbucks as a public space, public meeting safe space as everyone else is? Now, my interaction with Starbucks was not as bad as this one. I guess in 2011, I was training for the Peachtree Road Race, which is a big deal here in Atlanta. If you're from Georgia, you know what the Peachtree Road Race is. And everyone trains for it really around this time of the year. You know, if you are not a regular half marathon runner, or, you know, I guess it's like 6.2 miles. That's not a half marathon, but if you are a regular runner, you know, you have these clubs and people go in groups and do all these other things. And if you can't, it's really hard to run with water and things like, and a bunch of stuff on you. So this first time I went out, I was running. I ran from my place in Castleberry Hill up to Piedmont Park, and then back to my place at Castleberry Hill. So I marked the whole trek at about 6.2 miles. On the way back, I stopped into the Starbucks on Peachtree Street, and I asked for a cup of water. Now, mind you, this is 2011. I have been going to Starbucks since at least 10 years prior, in 2001. And I've never had a problem getting a cup of water from Starbucks, whether I bought something there or not. Now, it wasn't very frequent that I was going to a Starbucks and not buying something and using the restroom or asking for a glass of water, but that's neither here nor there. I know they could do this because they do it all the time. And I was refused water. I was told that I had to buy a bottle of water. I asked if that was, you know, if that was a new policy, if that was a store policy, if that was a company policy. I wanted to just engage and ask what was going on. And it was really more about me planning the rest of my routes as I went about. I really didn't mind that they wanted me to buy the bottle of water. Had I had my wallet on me, which I later realized I needed to carry my wallet, or at least carry some cash on me when I went to go running around, I would have bought the water and been done with it. But it just was a really negative interaction. There were several people in line who didn't really understand why they wouldn't give me water, because obviously you have a whole kitchen behind this counter. And there were multiple people who offered to buy water for me, white people and black people. And I just said, it's not that, I don't need you to buy me water. That's not why I'm here asking. And I'm literally just trying to drink something so I don't pass out on the way home as I continue to jog. So they didn't give me the water. I wasn't gonna let anybody buy me water. So I just, jogged at a lower pace until I got to a Dunkin' Donuts, and then I asked them for some water. It wasn't even a second thought. They did it so fast. They didn't ask me why I wanted water, why I couldn't pay for it, there was nothing. They just poured the water, and then we got to talking about it, and then I explained that I had been to the Starbucks and that they wouldn't give me water. And so, they were just like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why they wouldn't just give you water, whatever. So I get home. I had ran that route a couple other times, and so I made sure I took tip money because I wanted to tip the people who gave me water the next time I was going past. And at that point, I just decided I wasn't gonna, patronize Starbucks anymore. I wrote a letter to the company, didn't hear anything back. I guess they figured I wasn't a customer because I didn't buy anything at that time, even though up until that point, every time I bought coffee from my house, it was always Starbucks brand. Anytime I bought, anything, it was always like Starbucks brand coffee because that was just what was in the grocery stores. And so I just said, you know what, I'm over it. Like I'm done with Starbucks. So I've kind of been informally boycotting Starbucks for about 7 years. If someone insists on meeting at a Starbucks as opposed to somewhere else, I will oblige. I generally won't buy anything there. If they want to, if you want to meet at Starbucks and you're insisting that we go there, you can pick up the tab on that coffee. You can do whatever. And I'm probably not going to have anything, or I'll have something small. I might go to a Starbucks if I'm in a very small airport that has no other restaurant open that offers nothing but deep fried food. So if I want like fresher whole foods or a sandwich that's not deep fried or anything like that, I might go to a Starbucks out of sheer necessity. I don't patronize them unless I absolutely have to. So, and that's because there is an anxiety formed in going to a Starbucks. I've been met with the interactions enough that make me feel as though I'm not welcome there. But I really believe that overall, that's the purpose of these racial infractions. That's the purpose of telling someone they can't use the restroom. That's the purpose of telling someone that they have to buy something or they have to get out. Because If they make you feel unwelcome enough, you just won't come back. And then your white patrons who want a more exclusive service where there's no black people around can have that because you're just ultimately one by one just gonna choose something else. I think that's the goal, and I'm fine with that. I think people feel like they have a right to be able to go pay a company like Starbucks for coffee, and my message is just that you really don't need Starbucks, because now, I think back in the day, there used to be two things that would happen. One, if you were in a black community specifically, there just weren't, black communities tend to not have those types of coffee environments, right? They don't have the sit down place where you can kind of just be your home away from home office. They don't have those in black communities. Two, there weren't a lot of other coffee chains that were really well known or respected or trusted or just known that you could just go and do stuff like that. So yes, there were other coffee shops, more smaller niche things, but now there's, Caribou, there's Dunkin', there's all these other places. And even Dunkin' isn't like a Starbucks in that sense. You could go to a Dunkin's, but a Dunkin's is more like a McDonald's that serves coffee. Hell, McDonald's serves coffee now. So but then some people, of course, want to boycott McDonald's because they're automating their systems. You would have a reason to gripe about any company, really. But Starbucks specifically, I think, is the worst because they pitched themselves as the open door, that you should be welcome, and that it's so commonplace for that to be the go-to place to have an interaction. And if you have free space for interactions and black people aren't welcome or black people don't feel welcome, that should be a serious problem with your organization. Now, I will say that the interaction happened last week. I want to say it was last Thursday, a week ago today. And initially Starbucks tried to put out that little stupid bogus statement after T.I. called for the boycott. And, it wasn't satisfactory. It really wasn't. It was almost a slap in the face. Because why say anything? If you're not going to take any responsibility, if you're not going to change anything, why say anything? Because you obviously don't care. And then when it kept going and kept going, then you had the CEO kind of step out and start doing these interviews and start doing media. Apparently he's met with the two gentlemen. They are in, I guess, arbitration maybe or mediation about like how to resolve it. But my thing is, okay, the person who called the police needs to be fired. They really need to be arrested for abusing public resources like that. There could be a number of other actual things that happened during that time in a city like Philly that could have used those 6 police officers that came to arrest the 2 people for loitering, trespassing, whatever you want to call it, what it was. It was absolutely nothing. It was worthless. She needs to be fired. They say she's left the company. I don't know that she was fired by the company. If she's transferred to another store, whatever. Starbucks has said they're going to close all their stores on May 29th to offer a training for their employees on racial whatever. I think that's cute. I think that's good. I mean, I'm not going to give them a kudos on that. I want to see it happen. But more than anything, just look around you and look at the people who are really actively resisting even engaging in a boycott with Starbucks. They don't want their lives disrupted, but the reality is black people's lives are always disrupted by these brands who don't offer the same thing to us as they do to y'all. It should concern you that you're spending so much money a week. And again, for me, my pitch with the food access thing is multifold. I think culturally, Americans eat out way too much. I think it's exorbitant in cost when you eat out that much. And a lot of people simply just don't know how to cook for themselves. But when you pay all that money out and you can't do the stuff for yourself, then you're reliant on a restaurant, whatever their policies are. They may or may not even serve you at these restaurants. And so a significant part of the reason that I don't eat out as much as most other Americans do is one, because of expense, but also because I don't want to invite those types of interactions. I'm frequently very anxious about being outside of my house, being in a place where, if I show up and I only have a $50 bill and you don't want to take my $50 bill, now you're going to call the police because I didn't pay for a meal if I don't have a card. Or if my card gets declined because of any number of reasons, if I'm traveling and it triggers a this or that, now it's not just, okay, I'll owe you on the next one or whatever. And, and that can happen. Black people just aren't typically given that type of leeway. We don't get treated like that frequently. We don't get treated like I did at the Dunkins that day. We get the cops called on us if we ask to use the restroom and then sit down for literally 2 minutes. On GMA today, on GMA, Good Morning America, Robin Roberts interviewed the 2 men who were arrested at the Philadelphia Starbucks. And they literally described arriving at the Starbucks at 4:35 p.m. for a meeting that was supposed to happen at 4:45. So obviously, you know, if you go to Starbucks, you know those tables are first come, first serve. So that makes sense to me. You would want to get there because you don't want to have a meeting and then you're wasting 10 minutes looking around or waiting on somebody to get up so that you can have a table. They got there, secured a little small bistro table. I don't even know how they were planning to have a meeting for 3 people at this little bistro table, but okay, fine. Sitting next to other people, everybody's having an okay time. Guy comes in, immediately asks to use the restroom. He's told he has to buy something. He sits down. Within 2 minutes, they called the police. They didn't ask them to leave. They didn't demand that they leave. They didn't do this. The manager of Starbucks, the people at Starbucks did not engage these 2 people at all once they sat down. So why would you call the police before asking someone to leave or asking when their meeting was going to start? Anything. There was no sympathy, no compassion, no understanding, no empathy, nothing. They were treated like criminals from jump. So don't give me anything about this was an isolated incident. Oh, that manager was she just had the problem with black people. It's so much worse than that because there's no reason why you would call the police in that type of a situation. And everyone in that Starbucks, I feel like, contributed to it. Because if you knew that this manager was calling the police, I don't care if you work under this manager or not, you should have checked her on that. When the police came, you saw some patrons of the Starbucks speaking up for the 2 men, but you didn't see any of the employees trying to stop it or talking to the manager who called them out of it. So I think there's a broader culture of creating a fear or an anxiety within black people, so we simply don't even bother to go to your establishment so you can keep them clear. And that's a really big problem. I mean, I think a lot of black people are dealing with anxiety, suffering with anxiety, and I've made it very public that I have anxiety issues in a very sincere way. It was really came to a head when I moved to New York. Living in Brooklyn made me anxious all the time. I was anxious about arriving late somewhere, being outside in a public space where I might get accosted by the police. I was so afraid of stop and frisk. I was so afraid of these things, and I would just sort of run about throughout the city. I could never sit. I wouldn't even go to an outdoor cafe, honestly. Like, I wouldn't even sit unless I was going to a place to sit down and enjoy something in there and pay for it. I really wasn't going. I never just left my house and strolled around. I just didn't do it because I didn't feel like it was safe, because there were so many things that could happen. As soon as there's such an irrational fear of black men in America by everybody that, you know, I've walked past people on the sidewalk who grip their purses when I walk past. I'm just like, I could have so much less interest in anything that you have going on in your life. And I think what a lot of white people don't understand is that we really ain't checking for y'all. Like, we really aren't. Like, my goal is not to go out and be satisfactory as a citizen with regard to white people, giving you as much space as you want on your side of the sidewalk. I don't care whether you want to share an elevator with me or not. Like, I'm not interested in all these things. Cabs, you know, the whole going for cabs, trying to get a cab in New York is a whole thing. When Uber came out, I was very happy that Uber was there because it meant I could schedule an early flight to the airport and not have to worry about not getting a cab to that airport. That's been a nightmare in New York in all the years I've been going to New York or lived there. So, you know, then people call for a boycott on something. I don't even know why they called that boycott on Uber, but I knew I wasn't doing it because there's no other way for me to get around, like in many of these cities. So I say all that to say, I think that many white Americans use an irrational fear and distrust of black people to make choices that end up meaning we have a mitigated experience that might result in death, might result in an arrest, might result in a minor infraction, but all of it is discrimination. So it really doesn't matter why she called the police. It wouldn't have mattered what they said to her. It wouldn't, there was nothing that could have happened outside of them pulling a gun on her for her to really have been justified in calling the police. I mean, and so I'm glad she left the company, but I really wish she had been fired. That needs to be known who she is, and I don't even have her name. I wouldn't dox her like that, but her name is going around. Her face is going around, sadly for her, because she looks a hot mess. And I just hope that people recognize her and realize, like, she is a problem. Like, you're going to cause problems for your company. Now, today I was watching the rerun of The Breakfast Club. Keke Palmer was on, and she talked a bit about anxiety and talking to people about anxiety. And that was actually refreshing to see, just because I think within urban communities, we don't really know how to diagnose or discuss the types of feelings that emanate when we face trauma like this on a regular basis. And I think it makes it harder for us to recognize that there is a problem or even be willing to talk about it when you have so many people, white and black, who are so ready to defend companies like Starbucks. Like, you know, there's been so much discussion about this white lash against Starbucks for now saying that they're going to close their stores on the 29th. It's like, they gave you 5 weeks notice that they were going to close the stores in the afternoon. So the stores aren't even closed the whole day. You can still go get your breakfast coffee, you can still go get whatever, but it closes in the afternoon. So, and there's just outrage because these white people cannot fathom being inconvenienced for an afternoon to resolve a problem that might prevent the arrest of 2 people. And my thing is, going on farther with the Starbucks situation, those men need to be compensated. One, they probably sabotaged the deal that they were there to discuss, that they had been working on a presentation for. Second of all, they had to spend the time in jail. They probably have to go to court for it or pay some fine. And then I don't know if they were bailed out or had to pay, you know, whatever. I don't know all the details behind that, but they lost an entire day of their lives, basically. They didn't get out of jail until 1 o'clock that morning. So it's like, we have to really exhaust this. It can't just go away because Starbucks agreed to do X, Y, Z, or their company, their CEO, had some emotive expressions on TV. That's not enough because they provide a service and they don't want to be held accountable for providing it equally. That's what I have a problem with. If Starbucks made it known that black people that their restrooms were white only, I'd be like, okay, great. Then I know I'm just not going to go to Starbucks. We know as black people when we're not welcome, and we take the cues. But don't go, and I'm not even going to argue with people. Like, when I have this stuff happen to me, I don't sit and cause scenes. I don't argue. I don't fight. My anxiety has gotten so crazy in dealing with stuff like this and anticipating bad things to happen that I've gotten to the point where I just will simply, I go out, if I go into a business, I feel like it's a coin toss whether I'm going to get what I went there for or not. Whether I'm going to the grocery store, whether I call a cab, whether I do anything, I just know that there's a 50-50 chance that something might go wrong where I might have to leave this establishment just so I don't face a greater problem. And it could be because of somebody who works there. It could be because of somebody who doesn't work there. It could be because of someone who never met me, never saw me, anything. There's a number of things that could happen that create a dangerous situation for me. So I just want to describe one situation. And this is not really to get your take on this. This is something I felt like sharing months ago when it happened because it made me that upset. And I decided against it. And then the series Atlanta did an episode about it. I want to say the first episode of this second season, or the second episode, when Earn tried to use cash to pay for certain things and he wasn't able to. I just want to kind of talk about that for a second. So I live in Atlanta, of course, and I'm 33 years old. For the longest time, sort of the best liquor store around was Mac's Liquor Store, and that's in Midtown. It's near Georgia Tech. Like I said, I'm 33 years old, and I've been shopping at this store for 15 years. Don't ask me about the math. 15 years. Never really had a problem with Mac's. Now, the culture of Mac's is sort of weird because the area that it's in is Midtown. Is very sort of cosmopolitan. It's very like it's white, but it's also multi-ethnic. It's a fast intersection. So it's not really like what you think of like a southern place. But the culture of Max is very good old boy, and frat boys are ringing up your stuff, and they all have on like camo hats or shorts or cargo shorts or whatever. And yes, they have black people who work there, but even those black people really fall into that culture of frat tees. And I mean, it's, you recognize it when you see it, even though I've never had a bad interaction there. So moving along, 15 years later, now this is a few months ago, they have a cash discount policy at this store. Now what that means is they have a price that's significantly lower if you pay with cash. And by significantly lower, it's generally about a 7 to 8% reduction if you pay cash. Something like that. And so I will tend to not even bother to go to Max unless I have cash on me. I don't generally carry cash. I don't even take cash from people, like from clients really, because I realize there's a risk in taking cash from anybody because, as a business owner, I realize there's a risk in taking cash because bills could be counterfeit and it could have really nothing to do with the client that you worked with who's paying you. Everyone who pays with a fake bill is not necessarily intentionally defrauding you. So, but I've never really had a problem with fake bills. Because I'm not an idiot, I know what real money feels like, and also I can kind of consider the source. If I were to reject someone's cash, it would probably be because I figured they were someone who has something going on, but I also would probably just defer to taking PayPal for that purpose. Some people boycott PayPal, and that makes my life harder because now, because you're choosing to not support PayPal, you're not realizing that when you give me this $100 bill or this $50 bill, now I can't really use it. Like, cash doesn't work for black people like it does for white people. If a white person goes to an establishment and pays with a $100 bill, they're going to take that $100 bill. I can't rely on going to a restaurant with cash and having them take that money. Now, certain stores like a grocery store, I expect that a grocery store is going to take my $100 bill. But that's the only type of store that I expect to really just without hesitation take this cash. And even then, it's questionable whether they're going to take my $50, sometimes my $100 bill. I say all that to say, on this particular trip to Max, I was getting stuff probably for a taping. I do drink and I go to the liquor store, so whatever. But as an adult, don't judge me. Like, I was going to the liquor store. I had gone to the Publix across the street to get cash back, literally just so that I could buy the liquor and get the cash discount. So the Publix gave me a $50 bill. I was like, okay, fine. I didn't think that much of it. I go over to the Max. What I was buying came up to about $40 or 40 something. And the guy white guy, I had never seen him before. He takes these long looks at the bill, like all like up, holding it up to the light. I'm confused. I can't verify this. He does it, puts it down, goes on bringing it up, does it again. He was so not capable of verifying this bill. And I'm just kind of like, here we go. I look over to the left, there's an armed security guard or policeman at the door. There's a bunch of people around. They're kind of paying attention, kind of not paying attention, but he's being incredibly obnoxious about how he's checking this bill. He's tall as hell, his arms are long and lanky as hell and white, and he's just so confused and loud about why he needs to thoroughly verify this because there's been so many people who come in and pass off fake bills. And I'm just sitting there taking it because in my mind, I know this is creating a dangerous interaction for me. If this man, due to his ineptitude, cannot verify this bill, which is actually his only sole function as someone who works at this store, is to take cash because they have a cash promotion and then produce change in a transaction and then bag the bottles. I kind of feel like if you can't perform one of your 3 essential tasks, you probably shouldn't be working here. And yet I'm the one who has a problem because you can't verify this $50 bill. You don't have a mechanism to verify it, you know, officially. You don't have a marker, you don't have a scanner, something. And I'm just like, it would seem like if I ran a business where the average item in this company, in this store, is over $100. You're talking about max. So they have huge bottles of liquor now. There's really not anything in their store that's less than $5, unless it's like a bottle, you know, a 6-pack of Coke. And I don't even think those are less than $5. I mean, what they upcharge on chasers is ridiculous. That's the real crime. But I digress. Now, my problem with this particular interaction is that he kept going. 5 times he checked this bill to see that it was acceptable to him. He's announcing all of the strings of, you know, fake bills that have been passed off. And so, at some point throughout, he eventually accepts the money. And I'm thinking about my alternate plan. I'm thinking about my contingency plan at this point. I'm just kind of like, okay, if he doesn't take the bill, do I feel rejected and then protest and walk out not buying the items? Or does that make me look like I actually had a fake bill and couldn't afford to buy the liquor without using a fake bill? Do I call the manager over and ask that you take my card, which could easily pay for the $40-something charge, as long as you offer me the cash discount that I would get because you're incapable of verifying this bill? Do I pay for the stuff with cash because he's accepting the bill and then call the manager over and suggest that you invest in some mechanism of verifying bills since you promote a cash policy? And ultimately what I decided to do was just get my groceries, get my liquor, get my change, and take my black ass home. And my thing is, no, I don't go to Max very much anymore. I'm not boycotting Max because, again, after going there for 15 years, again, don't do the math, I'm 33 years old. After going there for 15 years, I don't feel like it's worth it to boycott a whole store because of this one negative interaction with, again, one person. And this person might not have any problem with black people. This person might not draw a connection between looking at me and thinking that my bill is more fake. But it really doesn't matter whether he did it for that intention. That was the environment that he created for me. I feel like he put me in a threatening position due to a number of circumstances about how your store actively promotes and requests the use of cash, but then you're not capable of verifying it. And because if you choose to not verify it, it gives every witness credibility to believe that I'm trying to defraud your store or that I'm about to commit or trying to commit a federal offense. Then that's compounded by the fact that you have an armed security guard who I have to pass on the way out to even get to my car, whether I buy something or not. So it creates a situation where if I do anything and agitate the situation, and then it escalates to the point where I'm shot in the head, now the story is not gonna read Georgia Tech grad shot dead at neighborhood liquor store or campus liquor store. It's basically gonna say this black man was passing off fake bills, because they're not gonna verify whether the bill was real or not. They're just gonna say that's why they rejected the money. Then they're gonna shoot me, kill me. I'm gonna be either holding liquor or not holding it, and they're gonna make total exploitative use of the fact that I was in a liquor store. So I just said, you know what? Let it be their teachable moment to learn on somebody else's day. Because I wasn't interested in further infracting myself or putting myself in danger or at risk by bringing up the issue any farther. I was embarrassed, yes. And so I will drive the extra 2 or 3 miles to go to Tower Liquor Store on Piedmont Road. Now, that compounds things for me because I don't like to drive. I don't like to leave my immediate vicinity. And so Tower Liquor is outside of my comfort zone as far as just being on the road, because now that's more time for a cop to pull me over and kill me for doing that. But hey, there's more black people who work at Tower Liquor Store. At least the security guards that work at Tower Liquor are black. And all of the ladies who ring you up at Tower Liquor Stores are Asian women who actually know how to count and can tell whether bills are fake or not. And all the other people who work in there, they know that that community services a much more multi-ethnic community than the one at where the Max Liquor Store is. So the way that store is dressed, it's tons of white people who work there in the back. They manage the store, but as far as who the patrons interact with, they're not white people. And that makes me more comfortable. I don't know if that bothers you. I don't care if that bothers you. When I go to the grocery store, I don't want to be discriminated against. When I go to restaurants, I don't want to be discriminated against. So I'm much more likely to choose places of business that employ higher concentrations of people of color, especially in management, because they use common sense. They don't waste time promoting a cash policy and then not having a way to verify cash when the lowest item, the average cost per item that you sell is over $100. You would anticipate that someone's going to be paying with $100 bills, right? Like, I mean, that's sort of common sense if I was running a store. So my chest got hot just explaining that story. I mean, and again, you might not see that as racism. Some people will probably hear what I just said and say that I'm the real racist for discriminating against white-owned businesses, and I'm not. I just don't have the time to deal with ineptitude. I don't have the time to deal with incompetence. I don't have the time to accept your mistakes and your inabilities to do basic tasks. I mean, if this woman at Starbucks was so in fear that she called the police, she must have been fearful of her life. That means she's socially inept. She is incapable of working around other people. That's the reality of it. She's either that or she's vindictive and malicious, and in that case, there needs to be criminal actions and taken, or at least civil, taken against her, because that incident at Starbucks could have escalated in so many other ways. And whether white people think about that or not, when they work and operate in these types of situations, you have to. You have to accept that. You have to accept the responsibility of those things. When you open your doors for business, you have to take the responsibility of providing a safe and fair interaction for anyone who might walk through that door. And if you can't take that on, then you shouldn't be in business. If you, as a clerk, as an employee, can't take on the responsibility, then you shouldn't work around other people. Work at a call center. Work delivering like produce. Work doing something that you don't have to actually engage with people. There's so many jobs for people who can't interact with other people very well. So you need to be working in one of those types of jobs. And that's just the fact, Jack. So I hope you'll watch the next episode of The Counter, which is going to be a coffee episode. I'm only going to do 3 recipes, and they're all going to be about how you can recreate espresso-based drinks made with coffee on your stovetop. I mean, made with espresso on your stovetop. You don't need that big expensive machine, so I will post a link on the channel, but you should make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that will help you to make sure that you don't miss that episode when it gets posted. I want to thank everybody for watching the Whoop Ass Whipped Cream video. I hope you'll watch The Weekend 10 tomorrow. And I, of course, want to thank everyone who has donated to the show and to the YouTube channel over the course of the last week. I could not put on these without you. I could not pour this coffee and make it every day without donations of $1 to $100 to more without your support. So I want to thank our friends to the show, including Georgina E., Carolyn N., Debbie R., Carmen C., Veronica C., Trish W., Laura P., Bianca S., Elizabeth C., of course, Caitlin W., Jesse E., Suzanne R., Joyce S., and Sarah S. So without further ado, that's been the cast. I might not have a lot of titles on this episode just because it's kind of just an extemporaneous rant. But I'm not ready to start going back to Starbucks. I'm not there. I don't think we're welcome there, and I don't know that there's any amount of training that they can do that would make me feel comfortable to go to their stores. But I feel that way about most generic structures anyway. I'd much rather go to something that's owned by the owner, that the person who owns the building owns the company is there, and I can make eye contact with them, because then I know I'm putting cash in the local economy, and also those people have much higher weight to make sure that these stupid types of things don't happen. So I just support small business, support local business, support Black-owned businesses, and take a break from all this nonsense. You don't need to deal with people's bullshit. I'd like to ask you to relax, relate, and resist. Thank you.
Too complex, much too complex, too complex, much too complex, too complex, too complex, too complex.